Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What do you do when no one else is watching? What do you do that makes you happy for no reason at all? What are you obsessed with? I'm Leslie Arfin, and I'm a writer, but I'm also a dancer, a painter, a vapor, a dollhouse enthusiast, and basically just an overall hobbyist. My podcast, Filling the Void, is all about what other people are fanatically into. We talk about hobbies, even if you don't have one.
Listen to Filling the Void on Tuesdays on the Arios Network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, it's Dave here, and this is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile, the podcast where we used to walk home from the movies. And today we're doing our spoiler-free end-of-year movie roundup where we go through our personal top 5 list, each of us. Sorry, we are with our kids as well. They're being fed snacks.
I'm feeding them banana as we record, as is the professionalism of this podcast.
So you may occasionally hear some conversation.
Screaming for banana.
But yeah, we're out for a nice walk to cap off this year and salvage what is left of it.
The wonderful year that was 2020, particularly a wonderful year for cinema goers.
Yeah. So look, so what you're going to hear, as I said, no spoilers for any movies here. Any movies from 2020. You'll hear each of our top 5 personal favourite movies from this year. Neither of us know each other's lists, as always.
We get quite a thrill from our list reveal.
Yeah, thrilling. And we'll also shout out some honourable mentions, so movies that we saw this year that didn't quite make our list but we think are worth your attention. And also our worst movie of the year each. And more importantly, we're going to hear from you guys. So we put the call out to hear some of your best and worst of the year, and we're going to hear some voice notes from our family and from our patrons. So with that said, Kathy, oh my god, it's mucky here.
It's very mucky. We also need to do a very strong caveat on this podcast that you guys will all appreciate as well as regular moviegoers. We normally do about 50 episodes a year, right? And go to the cinema every week. This year I looked earlier.
On top of watching movies
On
at
top
home.
of watching new movies at home. This year we managed to do about 25 episodes of the podcast, which I'm proud of given we had a new baby and it's a pandemic. But let's be honest, most of them weren't good movies. We ended cinema going on a high in March with Parasite. We came back in August for Tenet. In between that we were watching things that streaming services deigned to release. So also we're not film critics, and a lot of film critics get sent screeners. They also get to go to cinemas during the day to watch maybe small releases. We don't have access to any of that. So what I'm saying is this is the worst movie list I've ever had in the history of this podcast. Usually we agonise over our list. We've so much to choose from. If I'm being honest, I could barely scrape a top 5 this year. All my labour and love went into the TV roundup of the year because it was a great year for TV, and I know there was lots of nice.
Which is available on the podcast feed now
already
as well,
live,
by the way.
and I know there were lots of good movies this year, but frankly we didn't get to see most of them because of the nature in which they were released.
Yeah, and also look, my list is the same. Easily, it was a bit of a struggle to pull this together. But also it's worth saying that's not to say 2020 didn't have a load of amazing movies released. We just didn't see them. Could not see them. I've been trying to see Saint Maud everywhere. It's not available. We couldn't get, cinemas were closed when it was released. I know a lot of people did see it, and that's on their list. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, haven't seen that. There's loads of end of year film lists that are apparently packed with amazing movies that we just did not see. But we did see the Eurovision movie and The Old Guard and Extraction and anything that Netflix had or Prime Video. So look, that's the lot we're dealt with. But that said, there's still some cracking movies that we did see this year. And let's get right into our top 5 of the year. I'll start. My number 5 movie that I saw this year was in the cinemas, and it was at the very beginning of the year when they were open. And it was 1917, the Sam Mendes World War I movie, which is probably the last sort of great cinema experience we had in terms of like an experience. And this is a movie that is, I would say, very much intended to be seen on cinema screens and is better for it.
It's made for the big screen.
Oh yeah, and it is an experience. I felt immersed. I felt like I was in the trenches with these two lads. It's a very intimate way of presenting a story, you know, from sort of in completely real time. And I was absolutely caught up in it and engrossed. I thought it was an incredible technical achievement by both Roger Deakins and Sam Mendes. The two leads are excellent, really hold our attention. It was quite emotional in parts. And I think the only weak point, which you pointed out when we reviewed it at the beginning of the year, was like this sort of unnecessary cast of big British faces that kind of take you out a bit when it's like, oh, there's Colin Firth, there's Benedict Cumberbatch. It's like, no, it's like that kind of killed it for me, because the two leads besides are relatively unknown. I've seen them in a few things, but it was easy to sort of just get immersed in these young British soldiers in this world, and then it's, oh no, there's Mark Strong. So you know what I mean? It kind of just takes you out of it a bit. But look, an absolutely incredible achievement, a very personal achievement for Sam Mendes, because it was based on his grandfather's experiences, I believe.
Inspired by because his grandfather was a messenger in World War One.
And really, in the year that is 2020, looking back, I'm glad we got to have that kind of experience, and it's something that is now kind of at risk, I would say.
It feels
going
like
into the future.
1,000 years ago that we saw that movie.
It really does.
I think it was before our second son was born. It was in January, and it was obviously before the pandemic, so I genuinely can barely remember the experience, but I did love it. Okay, my number 5 of the year is... Elliot is now screaming for snacks, so we're going to pause it for a second.
We're going to take a break. Take a break already and come back in a second.
I'm going home to see my mother and all my loved ones who've gone on. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home.
Okay, we're back. We might have a few more intermissions like that for spot of parenting.
And what you just heard was the theme music in 1917. Now,
Kathy's just decided that I'm going to do later, am I?
That's what you're inserting there.
I hope I remember.
So my number 5 of the year is a movie I'm picking primarily for the experience of seeing it in the cinema more than anything else, and it is Tenet. After a long break from cinema, we finally got to go back. We were so excited. We were basically hysterical. We do have a full episode review of Tenet, by the way, on our main feed, as we do with 1917. And Tenet is a complicated movie. Like, as we mentioned, we did a shout out on Twitter for best and worst movies of the year. And
you don't mean complicated in the way that
it's complicated. Well, it's a complicated movie.
It's not controversial. It's literally complicated.
But on our the best and worst that a lot of you guys submitted to us on Twitter, it seems to sit 50-50 between both best and worst lists, which is very unusual.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence.
See why.
I'm on the fence with it, if I'm honest. Like, there was parts of the movie.
You're not on the fence. It's your number 5 movie of the year.
Let me explain.
Oh, sorry.
I'm on the fence in that in a normal year, there's no way this movie would have cracked my top 5 because I had a lot of issues with it. But I absolutely loved the experience. Fair play to Christopher Nolan. He's intent on bringing cinemas back to the big films back to the cinema and the big screen. I truly admire Christopher Nolan for what he did, releasing it in the summer when it was safer to release a film. And I, as much as I kind of couldn't make head nor tail of a lot of the movie, I was just so happy to be in the cinema, and it's honestly one of my highlights of 2020, sitting in the cinema watching Tenet.
Yeah.
So thanks, Christopher Nolan. I don't normally love your movies. Didn't quite love Tenet either, but it cracked my top 5 for the year that's in it.
Okay. Awesome. I've forgotten what my number 4 is, and I can't find my list here, so hold the line. So professional. There it is. Okay, so this is a movie that we saw on TV and was released on TV. And I'm not sure, I think they are movies. So Steve McQueen's series of movies that he did for BBC that were aired a few months ago called Small Axe. And my number 4 is Lovers Rock, which is, I think, the second one that was released. We've seen 2 of the 5 so far, and they were both excellent. But Lovers Rock, in particular, is made my list because of the year that's in it, in particular, in which social occasions have essentially been benched and will be for the sort of foreseeable future. And what Lovers Rock did, it did many things incredibly well, but for me what it gave me was I got to experience a house party.
I know.
Again,
we were watching it and we were like so happy to be watching it, and also saying we wish we were at a party.
It was but I felt like I was there. It was like what Steve McQueen has a very naturalistic sort of filmmaking style anyway, which I always like. You know, he likes to dwell in moments. So like the one that always stands out to me for some reason is Shame, and the mopping the halls down the corridor when he spends minutes and minutes on that. And I think what you get in sort of intense movies like Shame is you get sort of time to reflect on the task of that and everything that's happening, which often you don't get with movies. They don't give you breathing room as an audience to reflect during the running time. Lovers Rock is different. There's not much quiet time in this movie, but there is long moments where Steve McQueen lets you just breathe it all in, right? And that's extended music scenes. There's one track which plays. He leaves the track play in its entirety, and we're just watching people dancing, and then the audience, the people at the house party, just sing the whole track again. So you just hear it twice, and I was just there in it. I felt it, and there's kind of nothing more special in many ways or magical than a group of people singing together live, particularly a cappella. So the energy and the sort of, I'm going to say sort of the passion and the sort of sexiness of a house party and dancing and life was just captured so incredibly and minutely by Steve McQueen. And I still don't know how they did it. Like, how did they get a camera in that room? Like, it's a relatively small room for that many people, and what is a camera crew, and so I felt like I was there, and it was I would say a little bit like 1917. It was more of an experience than a story. Do you know what I mean? And it also felt to add another layer. The theme throughout Small Axe is, I believe it's sort of set around the British Afro-Caribbean community in London between a very specific time frame, right?
So West Indie
70s.
West Indie community in the 70s in London.
Yeah. So that's the setting for these 5 movies, and that's a sort of that sort of time and that community was also new to me. So I felt like I was time traveling.
Yeah,
so,
it was amazing.
It felt like it was both new from that perspective and fresh, but also something intimately familiar, that human experience of coming together and just kind of losing yourself in music. And it just felt like living, which is something a lot of us didn't really get this year.
And crucially for anyone in the UK who wants to watch it, and I believe in the US it's on Amazon, in the UK it's all on iPlayer now, so you can go off and watch it. It's called Small Axe, and there's 5 movies in it.
Yes. Kathy, what's your number 4 of the year?
My number 4 of the year is 1917. So I won't go on about it too much, because Dave said a lot. We also have done a full review of it, and I loved it. It was a brilliant film, but it feels like a 2019 film to me. It feels that long ago. I know it was brilliant. I remember being immersed in it. It was truly wonderful. But I don't have much more to say about it. And again, it's probably not a movie in a regular year that would have cracked my top 5 purely because we would have seen so much since then. And as I said, it feels like a lifetime ago. But it's an absolute spectacle of a film. If you haven't seen it already and you are at home, watch it on the biggest screen you can find and enjoy the immersive experience. Don't pause it. Go to the toilet before you start watching it. Have your snacks in front of you, because it's the kind of movie that would probably be killed by watching at home. And that's one of the reasons we really enjoy the small act films we watch, because they're about an hour and 15 minutes. It's a lovely duration for watching at home. But yeah, 1917, absolutely brilliant for all the reasons Dave said. And I totally recommend it, and it was a real highlight of this year going to see that movie.
By the way, I would take your sort of advice there for watching this movie with most movies that are watched at home. Most movies will benefit from not, using the convenience of the pause button, not getting up to make a cup of tea in the middle of it.
And we're speaking as people who kill every movie.
We do it. Yeah, I'm not above that.
We'll pause a movie each 3 times. We'll watch it over 2 nights, and then we'll be like, that movie didn't really grip me. It's like, wait, no, I don't think that's the movie's fault. It's the fact that we're watching it at home. And this is why we're a cinema podcast and not a stay at home watch a movie on your couch podcast.
See our recent review of Soul, in which we destroyed that movie
Soul
in the way we watched it.
But also Disney Plus released it on a streaming service, so what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Dave.
Okay, speaking of...
number 3 of the year?
My number 3 of the year.
I'm intrigued now, because I had guessed Small Axe and 1917 would be on your list, but now I'm curious because I can't picture what else is on your list.
Okay, so the number 3 film I saw this year is not Soul, but if you'd asked me at the beginning of the year which Pixar movie would make my list between Onward and Soul, I'd have said Soul. It'll be Soul, but it's not. It's Onward, and it's a curious one because
Onward is your number 3 of the year. Let's just let that settle for a moment.
Onward is my number 3 of the year.
This is the state of 2020.
This is no, but I'm going to defend my choice now because
it's not a bad movie. It's just like this is the state of 2020.
Objectively speaking, this is not
Are
even
you
that.
joking me?
Let me defend my position here, right? Because this is the thing with lists, right? They are ultimately. This is my list. This is very subjective. This isn't, and it's also not. This is my favorite films that I saw this year. This isn't me saying, guys, Lovers Rock was an amazing piece of work by Steve McQueen, but really, you should check out Onward by Pixar because that's a better movie. I'm not saying it's a better movie. I'm saying it's my third. I look fucking list of nonsense anyway, but like this is literally.
It's your third most enjoyable.
It's very personal to me for many reasons that I'll get into now, right? And
I do have to say, funnily enough, it's not on my list, but I did contemplate having Onward on my list purely because it's the one and only film we went to the cinema with our 2 boys this year.
That's one of
I loved that.
That's one of the reasons I was going to outline. So we had, firstly, it was a cinema experience that we had in 2020, which ultimately elevates it a little higher than a lot of the movies we did see.
February.
A lot of the good movies.
It was a really special day for us.
So, and like Kathy said, it's the first. That will always be the first time the 4 of us went to the cinema as a family, right? So that's special for me.
And crucially, the only.
And there are also, the movie centres on 2 brothers, right?
Yeah.
And I was imagining our 2 boys and them growing up and the relationship they'll have. So I was able to sort of see them up on the screen. I was also able to put myself in the shoes of the protagonist as a former awkward teenager who doesn't quite know his place in the world. I also related because this was the year that I, because of lockdown and complete boredom, learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And that's largely what this movie kind of centres around it, this older brother who's obsessed with
and
sort
can
of
I add
fantasy
in
role-playing.
That as the wonderful wife I am, I have played Dungeons and Dragons.
Kathy indulged me, and you quite enjoy it. We've been playing it since what, April or May now, right? Ongoing.
I kind of enjoy it.
All right,
but I enjoy that you get very happy.
This is you trying to distance yourself from Dungeons and Dragons, which I get.
Well,
There's
we
a
also
stigma
play with them.
on there.
Lockdown Lizzie and my mom and my sister Jackie. We've got a whole Dungeons and Dragons group going.
Yeah, we got a crew going. So there's that. And also, I lost my dad this year, and this movie is about. It largely centres around trying to just have one more conversation with a father, and I'm able to relate to that more than ever now, and that sort of what would you give for that?
Yeah.
And that's the by the way, this isn't really a spoiler, but that's the MacGuffin in this movie, which I think is a beautiful touch.
It is,
because
yeah.
this is a fantasy movie, and it could have been, you've got to get the orb of Thalos or the concrete of whatever, you know. But this is literally, the stakes are they just get to spend a little bit of time with their lost father, and that's a stroke of genius to make that the center of the plot, and it invests you from the beginning. So while I'm not saying that this is not the third best movie made in 2020, this isn't even the third best Pixar movie, for God's sakes. You know, if you'd shown me this movie and said this is from DreamWorks Animations, I would have said, that makes sense.
It looks like DreamWorks.
It looks like
in my memory it was DreamWorks. I didn't remember it was Pixar.
It doesn't feel very on brand for Pixar, and in many ways it's
quite
by
ugly.
the numbers.
I thought the animation was truly hideous for this movie.
But where it does hit home that Pixar do well, and for my money do better here than they did in Soul, is the emotional stakes and sort of punching you in the feel gut. Mm-hmm. And I got that several times throughout this movie, and so that's why I'm kind of ranking it so highly personally.
Okay, you've sold it. I'm pulling my shade back a bit. For sure.
Draw your shade back, lady.
Okay, my number 3 of the year is also a movie we saw pre-pandemic. Was on a lot of people's lists for last year, but we saw it this March. And it's Parasite.
Oh yeah.
Which is
it's also a bit of a 2019 movie in many ways.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we saw it in 2020. Much like 1917, both those movies were on a lot of lists last year. Parasite's an unbelievable movie. Complete shock, like nothing I've ever seen before. We have a whole review of it on the feed, so I'm not going to go hugely into it, but it's a truly unique experience. I was privileged, I think both of us were, to catch it on the cinema right before lockdown, and for it to have been our last experience at this cinema for such a long time, because it really was truly special. Such a unique movie, absolutely deserved all the Oscar buzz and the Oscar win for Best Picture. It's set in South Korea. I haven't seen very movies set there. It's a truly incredible and unique story. The direction is masterful. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. If you haven't caught Parasite, just go and watch it. It lives up to all the buzz. It's brilliant. And if we'd seen it last year, it probably would have been top of our list. It's just I've seen just 2 movies that impacted me personally more this year, because Parasite isn't quite, you're talking about a gut punch and stuff. Parasite isn't a movie that probably affected me very personally, but it's certainly a movie that made me laugh my head off and just be totally bewildered and befuddled and enjoying. And he's masterful. He's a masterful filmmaker. And
Parasite's not necessarily doesn't have that emotional
exactly.
impact,
and I'm a schmuck,
I get what you
and
mean.
that gets me. That will always get me at the top of.
Well,
of
who's
the
a bigger
list.
schmuck? I had Onward as number 3. They got off the road.
But yeah, so number 3 of the year for me was Parasite, and just go and watch it if you haven't watched it. And while it's of course better to see this movie in the cinema, it's not quite a 1917 in that you could quite enjoy it on a small screen at home
I
too.
think this would translate quite well. Right, so my number 2 movie this year is a British movie again, and this one's called Rocks, and we saw this during the summer, and it's on Netflix now, I believe.
Can I just say that Rocks is my number 2 of the year as well?
Oh really? Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about it together.
So we can just talk about it. I think our lists are more similar than usual this year, just because of the lack of films we saw.
And we did an episode on this with Lou from the Shade podcast.
Yeah.
Which you can go back and listen to. We had a great chat with her.
We had a great chat with her, and actually Shade Podcast, which is an amazing podcast, is just about to... She has a new season launching next week, so go and subscribe and listen to her because she's brilliant. But yeah, we loved Rocks. What a treat. What an unexpected treat. This did get released in the cinema, but it's on Netflix now, and it funnily did very well in the cinema for a small British movie because of the fact that there was nothing else out. It really helped this movie, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's... Okay, I mean, we just mentioned sort of emotional impact and stakes, and I think this movie really delivers on that front. I was personally very emotionally invested in the main character Rox and her, without saying too much about the plot, but it's about her trying to survive a difficult circumstance at home and kind of being torn between being a child, which she is, and also having responsibility thrust upon her, and kind of becoming a mother to her younger brother Emmanuel, who is the most heartbreaking.
Oh my God, Emmanuel!
A heartbreaking little boy and just delightful little guy that your heart will go out to.
What's amazing about this movie is, like, as Dave's outlining all that, like, it's really important to say that Rox is a black teenage girl living in London and East London, and predominantly the story is people of colour. And you know, the year that was with the Black Lives Matter movement bigger than ever, and you know how little we get to see any stories outside of kind of the white stories on screen. Rox is certainly a wonder to behold, because not only is the cast of colour, it's directed by women, it's written by women. It was so collaborative. Like the amount of collaboration that went into Rox is quite something. Like, all the young girls starring in the movie got to contribute to the plot. Oh, there was a year of workshopping with young teenage girls before they even shot the movie to cast it, to decide what stories were relevant, to decide what story should be told. So that only one of the girls in the cast was even an actress before this. But now the
it's hard to believe because they're so good.
They're so good, and the girl who played Bucky is like, the girl Bucky who played Rox is now like on an acceleration for an incredible career, and she's quite something.
Oh, she's very good.
So it's like one of these movies that you love watching it. It's really uplifting, right? If you're finding it a hard watch, we promise you the end's nice. But it's also then when you read about the production, it's just, you know, and we made a joke when we were chatting about it with Lou, that like the collaboration on this movie, like the director almost doesn't take any credit for it because all she talks about is the collaboration, versus someone like James Cameron, who will get up when he wins his Oscar for Best Director and scream, "I'm the king of the world." And I just feel like it's an interesting point on like a film made by women versus the so-called singular talent of a male director that we've all been fed the lie that that's what a director should be. So there's so much to recommend about Rox, and it's really short. It's like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So get on it on Netflix if you haven't seen it.
It's also, do you know, it's also just a real lovely celebration of friendship.
Oh, I love it. Female
and
friendship.
Particularly female friendship. But it's a recognisable, like, I was able to recognise this group of very tight-knit friends in school. And you get to kind of bask in that a lot, which, you know, you have a lot of moments of them just being friends and sort of goofing off or whatever, but also they're there for each other in the most important moments. And
the sibling love, like how much you love.
Yeah.
Like we're both big siblings. I'm also have an older sister, so I'm also a small sibling, and the love, like what you would do to protect your little brother or sister if you could. Yeah. And Rox does that. I actually get shivers thinking about what a beautiful movie it is.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It is beautiful, and I agree with Kathy when you factor in the care that went into the production of this movie, and you understand why it feels and looks so authentic.
Yeah, it's so special.
You know.
Okay, Dave, I actually can't guess what your number one of the year is because I thought it was going to be Rox.
Onward.
No, I thought it was going to be Rox.
You thought it was going to be Rox?
Yeah, I just had that vibe.
Okay, I can't really guess what yours is either. So my number one of the year, you've already said it, is Parasite, and it kind of feels like
it feels
kind
like
of a boring thing to put at the top of your number one. And I kind
of yes, it won Best Picture.
I thought about it as well. Yeah, it's just feels like so
long
old
ago.
now. It's such old news, Parasite.
Can you believe the Oscars happened as a real life event?
I know, right?
At the end of February.
But that was a huge deal. Oh my God, was that February? That was.
It was February.
Oh my God. Let's not forget that what a huge deal that was in February, back when that was able to be headlines, and there wasn't all these other headlines.
There's only been 2 headlines since February in England: COVID, Brexit. But then globally,
COVID, Black Lives Matter, Trump, just everything that happened this year. Significant things. Anyway, back in February it was like a foreign language film winning Best Picture was the most incredible thing you could imagine in
thrilling.
2020.
It was thrilling.
But it is so deserved of that, and that's a big moment that was acknowledged by a very, I would say, archaic institute, the Academy Awards. But it was hard not to get caught up in the Parasite sort of frenzy, and even before it won Best Picture, it was for a foreign language film. It was getting such buzz and wide distribution. People were it was selling out screenings before it even won the Best Picture.
And to the point where when we went to see it in March, we were like, it's not going to live up to our expectations.
And it exceeded
blew them away. Yeah.
It's just and you've kind of said most of it, so I won't bang on. But for me, the best thing you can get from cinema besides emotional impact, which, as I said a minute ago, I didn't really get from Parasite. I got it from Onward, but I didn't. But the other thing that is so important for me when it comes to cinema and movies is, well, being immersed, but walking out of a movie and feeling changed, or feeling like your perspective is being challenged, or that you're thinking a lot, right? So it was like, this movie stayed with me for days. Not only in the way it sort of highlights problems that are inherent in the capitalist system through the lens of, well, South Korea in particular, but feel completely relatable to me living in a capitalist society, and particularly sort of the problems inherent with a society that creates class divides. And then the sort of obsession with wealth and status and power, and that effect that it has on people. And I can't really talk about that without going into detail about the plot, which, besides all of that heavy stuff, is just fun to watch.
It's funny.
Even if you don't dig into what he's actually talking about or what he's presenting, it's funny, it's kind of thrilling, it's creepy, it's weird, but it's unlike anything I've saw this year or any other year, and that's what I like about Bong Joon-ho as a filmmaker. It's like, he doesn't make things that you've seen before.
But this is what
and
we
he's
want.
Got something to say.
We want new perspectives. We want to be challenged. This is why it's so much more interesting for us now to watch movies where possible that have been made from different perspectives than ours.
Yeah.
And the importance of that excitement on screen. And it'd be so funny. I'd nearly be tempted, but slightly heartbroken, to try and go back and re-listen to our review of Parasite, because I remember when we went to the cinema, it was our first time going to cinema on our own since we'd had Elliot. We were absolutely buzzing. We were so excited. We were kind of like vaguely talking about COVID as like this far off thing. And now to go back to listen to that would be like listening to two different people.
Yeah, from a different world. But my last point to say about it is that besides all that, like, it's got an incredible plot, story, theme. The theme of it is profound. But also, as a filmmaker, Bong Joon-ho, the visuals are just incredible. Like the symmetry that he provides. Every frame of this movie you can go through, and it is symbolic of what he's trying to say. Like, literally, there will be
all about the class
there's like lines dividing the characters that are almost hidden. It's almost all subconscious. Like the stairs. The set itself is an amazing set. You spend so much time there, but it is telling you part of the story as well, with the way he frames everything. And there's an incredible visual of involving water going downhill, which I won't say too much about. That is just like hits you, and not only because it's like it looks incredible, but what it means. And so it's like, this is a man who understands cinema and visuals and is a visual storyteller, as well as just being a funny guy on top of it all. So I'm just like, he's just a remarkable director, writer, and that's why it's I could not, as sort of boring as it is to say Parasite is an amazing movie, that I just had to put it number one. I just couldn't not do it.
I know, I felt like that, but I still had to have it on my list. And
go on then.
My number one is also a movie we've already talked about.
Oh, it's Lover's Rock.
It's Lover's Rock. Small Axe, directed by Steve McQueen. The other Small Axe movie we watched, Education, which is the last one in the series, blew me away for lots of reasons. And it's definitely in my, was close to being in my top 5.
Yeah, that's me too. But it's just outside it for me.
The difference kind of between Education versus Lover's Rock, in terms of why Lover's Rock is number one on this list, is because, as Dave already alluded to, it's the immersive experience of watching Lover's Rock, some of which made me very uncomfortable, by the way. And kind of, not to retread what Dave talked about, but I am going to speak a bit more about it because we haven't done a review of it on our main feed purely because we just watched it. So we just thought we'd save it for this list instead, presuming it would be on at least one of ours. And as Dave kind of mentioned, Lovers Rock is just the story of one night in the 70s in London, and it's just about a house party. But specifically, as we said, with people from the West Indies. And we begin the movie with the setup of a house party. We know, racism is very prevalent in England. We really know that the 70s was a very tough time for immigrants of colour in this country. It's still a hard world for immigrants of colour in this country. But the 70s racism was just so endemic and explicit. And what I love about this movie is that it begins with these black characters creating a space for themselves, and Steve McQueen has talked about that. It's like they created this party for themselves, for a safe space for them to be in the characters. And he spoke about, as a filmmaker, how it was also like a safe space for all of them. It's like a black cast, a black director, a black cinematographer, everyone in the production is black, and it's them telling, a story about a night that, like, as Dave mentioned, it's like it was like familiar and also very alien to me because, I've never been at a party like that. I've also have been at lots of house parties, and it was so cool to watch it because whatever way they did it with the camera and they captured it was like magic. And Steve McQueen said that when they filmed it was like magic, and they just caught that on camera, and that's down to the direction and the cast. Like, I felt like a voyeur at a party. I felt almost like a peeping Tom at certain points, watching the chemistry and, the excitement you're talking about. Is a girl's 17th birthday is kind of the nominal setting of the party, and like when you're 17, it's a night is like untold opportunity, and it's like you're getting ready for the party. Like, who might you meet? You might kiss somebody. You might hear a song that you love. Like, there's a point where everybody was kung fu fighting comes on, and everyone just loses their shit. And we were like, I have been at a party dancing to that song, losing my shit. It's like the untold excitement of a night. And I think as you get older, that dims, and certainly this year, we've not had many great nights out. But
this year it was extinguished.
This year was me and Dave playing Dungeons and Dragons over Zoom with my family. But we've all experienced that feeling in youth or otherwise of like just absolute getting ready for a night out with your friends, and like, what will this night be for me? And it's completely exciting. The lead actress, I forget her name, but she was brand new. She's never been in anything else. This is her first role. She's incredible. Everyone in the party is incredible. I lived for the 70s fashion and the afros. They were amazing. I want to be watching films, differing perspectives, different cultures, films that challenge what I'm used to seeing. This obviously was the year of Black Lives Matter and all the discussion around culture in the UK, the whitewashing of UK history, extensive problems in the UK with systemic racism. And the year that it is, I'm so pleased that Steve McQueen, though he obviously didn't make them this year, I'm so happy that this is the year the BBC aired those movies. They were supposed to be at film festivals and in cinemas as well. Obviously, mostly didn't get to happen. Similarly, we talked about I May Destroy You, that BBC made it as a TV series over on our Best TV of the Year, and what an incredible story that was. So kudos to the BBC for kind of funding it and making it, but real Steve McQueen's unbelievable. He's so talented. Lovers Rock, and there's some bits in the party that made me very uncomfortable that I didn't enjoy watching, and again, that's life. Like, what happens when people are together and there's alcohol involved, and there's women and men mixing, and then there's what I find so cool about it is like when you're watching something that's a completely different culture and time and something you can never be a part of, but you feel the similarities. And what it's a bit at the end of the night, right? Well, Dave, I won't talk about the big song that they all sing because they've already talked about it, but that blew my mind, and that was the absolute best scene of the whole thing. It's like hair standing on the back of my neck.
Tingling.
They're singing a song that we'd never heard called Silly Games, and it's just, that scene will just blow you away. But there's a bit at the end where like all the women kind of get off the dance floor, and it's just like the lads left and they're jumping around and all that, and I was like, this could be a group of lads singing The Fields of Athenry in a disco in Cork.
Yeah, we've been there.
I've been there 100 times, and I love that, like the universality of the human experience, even when you're looking at a really specific time and culture that you have never been in and never will be in.
Exactly.
And I feel really privileged that I watched that movie and that I was invited into that party and that I got to be a part of it. Much like I feel I was very privileged to be invited into the world of rocks. And on this podcast, you know, we want to challenge ourselves. We want to watch more diverse stories. We want to talk about them. We often, and have always lamented for years, of when we go to the cinema and the lack of diversity in everything we watch. So we want to do better watching this stuff. We want to recommend it to you guys. Everyone should be challenging themselves to stretch themselves.
Well, what a good year for that. If you
It's
look back
been a
at
really
the ones
good
we've
year.
just said, you know, Rocks and Small Axe and Parasite and like, it does feel like this content is more available than ever.
Yeah.
And cinema is the best medium, I would say,
Yeah.
for allowing different voices and perspectives and for allowing you as an audience member to live it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite
I feel like
kind of
we
a lot to be
basically-
excited about looking
We went
back
to a
on.
party we were never invited to, and we got to like be peeping toms for the night. Is how we
I
kind
didn't
of
really feel like a peeping Tom. I felt like I was there. I felt like I because normally when I used to go to house parties, I used to just be the wallflower anyway, right? So I was standing at the wall watching everyone.
Honestly, I used
So
to be
this is
too
pretty
drunk.
much my house party experience anyway.
I felt like, do you know what? I had a kind of sad feeling watching it of like, even if it wasn't COVID and all the rest of it this year, I just think even if we were away somewhere without the kids and we went to a house party, it wouldn't be the same. The complete abandon of when you're young. You don't care if you're going to trash the house. You don't care where you're going to
we're
fall
too old.
asleep. You don't know people. It's all exciting. Like at best, I feel like we'd be at a very enjoyable drunken dinner party with friends, but we wouldn't be at a party like this. And
Yeah, our
it's
time has
almost
passed.
it made me nostalgic for something I've never experienced and something I have experienced, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, beautifully put. And I think to further add to that, I spend a lot of this thinking about the cleanup the next day. And I was like, and when they're moving the sofa, and I'm like, oh God, be careful, like you're going to damage your sofa. And I was like, oh no, wow, I really have changed.
But anyway, I think we need to take a break. These poor children need to get out of this buggy, and then we'll be back. We're going to talk about our honourable mentions, our worst of the year. We're also going to have a new category this year, which we've never had in the podcast before, because we watched a lot of old movies this year. We're going to each pick our favourite retro watch, because we didn't watch that many new movies like most of you. We watched a lot of old movies this year.
And we're going to read out some of your tweets, and we're going to hear from some of our patrons about what your best and worst of the year.
And now I think we need to end, if you can find it, this segment on the Silly Games clip from Lovers Rock.
I love the way. Stop editing this. Stop directing this. Now I've got to go back and figure all this out later.
Yes, you do.
All right. Okay. Bye. See you in a bit.
Wanting you for so long, it's a shame. Today, you're
Right, we're back. It's actually only been a couple of minutes because when we stopped recording, we looked at the two boys and they were both asleep in the buggy.
And we will never ever waste a buggy with two sleeping children in it.
No, so let's carry on. Let's keep podcasting.
Let's do our honourable mentions.
Right.
My list is extremely short.
I've got a few. Right, go on. What you go first then? What do you want to talk about?
So short. I have Onward, which we already spoke about, purely for the joy of being in the cinema with our two kids. I won't talk about the movie because you've already talked about it, but we went in February. One of my dreams for this year had been, because I was on maternity leave, was to go to parent baby cinemas every week with Elliot, like I did with Oscar when he was baby. Never got to go to any. Obviously the least of my problems in 2020, but I was sad I didn't get that experience with him. But this movie we went to when he was about 2 weeks old. We had such a laugh. It was so chaotic. We had to change nappies in the middle of the movie. We were giving snacks. We had a crying baby. We were in and out of the bathroom the whole time. We had such a laugh trying to push the kind of first time really trying to push it up a buggy, and podcasts were now pros at it. It was just a really wonderful family day out for me, and that's why I have got Onward on my list. It's also a decent movie, in fairness to it.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's a Pixar movie at the end of the day. Like, how bad can it be? It's just an ugly movie, but it is a lovely story. And then my other honourable mention is Soul, as you referenced.
I've only got two.
No, I've got four.
All right. Four.
Soul, which we just
Oh my
watched on
God.
Disney Plus. I won't go into because we just did a big review of it. But Soul has a lot of wonderful elements. I really recommend people watch it. philosophically very interesting. Some parts that I didn't think worked, but some parts that I loved, and particularly watching Joe play the piano.
That's coming from a philosophy graduate as well.
And a very poor pianist. Watching him play the
You're
piano.
a good pianist.
I'm not. Did you see Joe playing the piano?
I mean, you're not as good as Joe. Fine.
He's amazing, and those scenes of watching Joe play jazz on his piano in a jazz bar in New York just made me want to go and watch live music, and I absolutely loved them. Small Axe Education, we briefly mentioned. It's about a little boy called Kingsley. He's 12.
This broke my heart.
It's again in the 70s in England. I don't quite know where it was. I think London. And it's about a little boy who is in school, and he's got some reading difficulties, and it's a bit of a tough watch, because again it's about the systemic racism in the English school system and how Kingsley is treated.
This was present in the American system as well. By the way.
It's present all over the world.
Brilliant Radio Lab podcast episode about that subject matter.
It's all over the world, but this is specifically an English story, and how when Kingsley acts up and mucks around a bit like any 12-year-old boy would do, how he's treated differently from his white school colleagues, and then specifically this fascinating system that was happening in England, where they were taking children of colour out of schools, mainstream schools, and sending them to special schools, and we kind of see Kingsley's experience in this school. It's a very hopeful movie. It ends on a really hopeful note. Kingsley is incredible, this kid. I love him.
Yeah, great actors throughout this.
His mother's incredible.
And it's a lot more story driven than Lovers Rock. So if
Yeah.
you're not someone who likes sort of immersive movies and naturalistic and just want a sort of a character and plot to get behind, this is an easier watch.
Very educational about what was going on in education in the 70s. And then there's a really funny scene in this movie where, like, we've all been there when some bore does this, and much like Dave was talking about earlier, how Steve McQueen will linger on something, it's like this buffoon of a teacher who sits down and plays House of the Rising Sun. And plays
and I think we get the whole song.
He plays the whole song, and then he starts it again. And that's like literally every house party I was at, also probably in my early 20s, there'd be some fool who'd pick up a guitar and sing some long song and no one would care, and they keep singing it. Anyway, really, really recommend Education, the Small Axe, and I want to watch the rest. Everyone's saying Mangrove is amazing. Haven't seen that one yet, so more to watch for us in 2021. And finally, I want to give a shout out to The Vast Night, which is a movie we watched on Amazon Prime this summer with my mum when we were in Ireland. And it's a small movie. It was made for under $1 million. This guy wrote and directed it by himself and kind of half self-funded it, I think. And it's, if you like sci-fi stuff set in the 50s, a little bit of Back to the Future vibes about the production, some intriguing sci-fi plots I won't get into for fear of spoilers.
Great camera work as well.
Great camera work. At one point we were convinced there was like a GoPro strapped to a dog.
To a dog, yeah.
Because the camera work was so low.
But no, it would have had to have been a steady cam attached to a dog. But the shot was so steady. But I was like, how are they doing this? Either they've got somebody on a skateboard, or there's a dog. It's just like, it was incredible.
Really cool, and like a lot of switchboard action. So if you want to see actors who actually learned how to work an old 50 switchboard stuff, it was a lot of it about radio. Someone was recording remotely. So
there's a love for radio in this.
It feels like a podcast made in the 50s.
Yeah.
So totally recommend checking that out on Amazon Prime. And that's actually my last honourable mention of the year.
That's it.
The very dry year that was 2020.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've got quite a few. Tenet, I'll start with, which didn't make my top 5 because those 5 movies are better than Tenet from my money. Tenet's good. Tenet's a good movie, right? Overall, it didn't, but it's. I think it's really problematic.
I mean, firstly, we literally couldn't hear it.
There's many problems with Tenet. Yeah, that's one of them. Is that and that's got a lot of media attention. The sort of audio troubles, and to be fair to Christopher Nolan, I think a lot of that might be down to the way it's presented in cinemas.
But every cinema can't be wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's right in making it for whatever Dolby Atmos or however he likes to make movies, but like he's somebody who's obsessed with the film, shooting on film and making cinema movies, and like this is how I do sound. But yeah, that's been a problem right back to Bane and like so there's loads of this where you're like, I don't know what those characters are saying because I can't hear them, and then sometimes when I can hear them, I still don't know what they're saying because this film is just like exposition dump after exposition dump. It was kind of hard to follow the plot, not only with the weird twisty actual subject matter of the plot, but like literally like who's that person and what is the motivation.
And why am I watching The Night Manager? Because I saw this a few years
Yeah,
ago.
it's The Night Manager with the same like actress playing the same role in the same plot. So you know, it's deeply. I think it's a deeply kind of problematic film, but it's something that has never been done before. It's hugely ambitious.
It has what's it called? A temporal time pincher or something.
Whatever.
That was awesome.
Temporal time pincer movement.
That was
but
awful.
Yeah, it's like
Awesome, I mean, not awful.
yeah, awesome. It's just like the ideas that Christopher Nolan had is, and that he decided to try and do it, is audacious, and I really admire that. And I had a good cinema experience like you did, and it's certainly unlike anything I've ever seen before. So I admire that. Not like while he didn't absolutely nail it. Trial of the Chicago 7 is a Netflix movie that Aaron Sorkin wrote and directed. We did an episode on that, which you can listen to with your mom. And this is Aaron Sorkin being Aaron Sorkin, which can go either way for me personally. But this is good Aaron Sorkin. I really enjoyed the subject matter, which is about anti-Vietnam or Vietnam War protesters in the 60s and violence that ensued around a protest, which again felt very prevalent in 2020, and how the ringleaders of that were put on what is essentially a sham trial. I love courtroom dramas. This is a very good one. It's got a great cast, particularly an interesting performance from Sacha Baron Cohen.
And what about Eddie Sideface?
Eddie Sideface.
As my mother has christened Eddie Redmayne.
Is in it. So yeah, I think it's well worth checking out, and actually like has some pretty interesting directing kind of flair from Aaron Sorkin. Small Axe Education is definitely deserves a mention, but I won't say anymore. I think you summed it up beautifully.
We're lucky we didn't see all of Small Axe, because that would have just been our top 5, I'm convinced.
It possibly would be.
Every movie
I'm
from
really
Small
looking
Axe.
forward to watching the rest
I know,
of
I
it.
can't wait.
One thing which I'm going to give a shout out to, which is not a good movie, right, by any measure.
And yet
I'm
it's
not,
in your honourable mention.
Yet
I like
it
it.
does deserve an honourable mention. It's Eurovision Song Contest.
Oh, yes.
The Fire Saga. I don't know. Can't remember what it was
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
The Saga of Fire.
Ding dong.
What was it?
I don't know. But we're still singing the songs.
We're still singing all of the songs, because the songs in this movie are top notch. Because not only are they feel like a Eurovision song. So I think this movie was coming from a very loving place, right? And
We need to start off by saying the movie was an hour too long.
oh yeah, no,
But the songs are brilliant.
The movie's kind of not a good movie. It really isn't. I think if you look at it objectively as a movie, when it comes to script writing, characterization, the way it was filmed, the way it's edited, it's not a good movie. Like, it's way too long. It's all over the place. There are sections of it that should have just not been there. A lot of it's not funny.
Will Ferrell is 20 years old.
Will Ferrell's too old. He's miscast himself. He shouldn't be playing that character.
No.
Yet, it's, for some reason, I loved it, and I would watch it again. And I have listened to those songs over and over again since I heard it, and they're just absolute bangers.
We had so much fun then recording the episode on that as well. Remember, we had so much fun doing our
we had
podcast.
fun because it's a fun movie.
I
And
actually think it was our best episode of the year for anyone who wants to listen to it, in terms of actually the best cinema episode of the year, despite the fact that we didn't see it in the cinema.
we should do a Cinemile episode top
No.
5.
Just in terms of we were having the best laugh.
We did.
wasn't
We had a lot of fun watching it. We had a lot of fun talking about it, and also Dan Stevens.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Very welcome comedic talent. Extraction is
Dave,
also not.
we are getting desperate. Extraction is so middle of the road that it has no place either on a best or worst list, or any sort of list in between.
But isn't that exactly what this is? This is the list in between. This is
the list of
not
you,
on my best
you
list,
looking
not on
to
my worst
the
list.
dredges of Netflix for something to talk about.
I think there's a lot of good to be said about Extraction. I think Kathy just snorted in case you didn't.
I'm like,
pick
we
that
did
up
a
on the
review
mic.
on Extraction and let's never speak of it again. It's so boring.
I think I like this. I think it's a really solid action movie. Felt very the action scenes and the close quarters fighting in this is very well pulled off. Chris Hemsworth is a bit of a sort of a blah action hero overall and a bit overexposed, but he actually brings a little bit of extra pathos to this. and it's got and it's a good setup, and I was invested, and I quite enjoyed it. So,
But
there's
again,
that.
it's an example of the kind of movie that we watched this year and did an episode on that in a normal year we wouldn't have done an episode on.
Yeah, probably. I think it was one of the most watched things on Netflix as well.
So they claim, which it means at least 3 seconds of it were watched by millions of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically 3 million people watched the opening credits or something.
Another Netflix thing which I think was quite good and interesting and timely was a documentary that we watched called The Social Dilemma.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that
That was really good.
that was very good. Again, not a perfect film. They made some weird choices. You know, they dramatized
Yeah, that was
a
really
lot of
weird.
this stuff, which kind of mostly didn't work for me. And there's some kind of quite out there, inventive ways of bringing a social media algorithm to life with your man from Mad Men and Angel playing 5 different guys at a console, controlling basically a character who's a puppet and feeding him. He needs more content. Give him some content.
He needs more ads.
So
sell
like,
him some, in my case, sell her some baby products, or sell her some skincare, or sell her like a sofa throw.
While that is, didn't quite work, I don't think, but it was an admirable way of trying to bring to life or visualize something that's quite a complicated thing to express. But also, if they hadn't done that, then it's just a load of talking heads for 90 minutes.
It's very grim watching, though.
But the talking heads it is grim. It's important kind of watching.
Yeah, it is
It's
important.
something that we all know. Sorry, I haven't said what it's about. It's about the problem with social media networks when it comes to a societal level, how it affects society, how it affects the human brain, the psychology of it, and all the problems that are associated with it.
And like interesting points like technology has advanced so much in the last 10 years that like our brains aren't built to cope for it, and like we know social media use and phone use causes anxiety and depression and stress, and in the year that it was where we all spent way more time on our phones than we should have, it was a very sobering watch.
Yes, and I think importantly, as to your point, we know all these things. There was nothing in there it didn't already know.
No.
But
It's just very stark.
to hear it all expressed over the course of 90 minutes by former senior employees of Google and Facebook and Apple, you're like
There was the guy who invented the like button was on it.
yeah. And
Do you
these
think, like,
guys,
someone had to invent that?
these people are saying this stuff is addictive. We engineered it to be addictive, and it's ruining human society. Then you're like, oh God, this really is a problem. I deleted Facebook off the back of it. And I'm sure a lot of people did.
I contemplated deleting it and then didn't, so there you go.
I'd like to shout out Dating Amber, which was an
Oh,
Irish film
yes,
that
of
was
course.
released this year on Prime Video.
That should have been on my list. Apologies, Dating Amber.
Yeah, so that was a nice little coming-of-age story about 2 teenagers in... I can't remember what county in Ireland, but...
One of the middle ones.
in school, in school, both gay but sort of not comfortable with coming out, and so they pretend to be a heterosexual couple to sort of fit in. And I think there's a lot.
Charming. It's definitely the word to use.
It was charming. It was naturally. We were able to relate as Irish teenagers to a
The
lot of it.
absolute
We
cringe
grew
of
up
an
in
Irish
that
school.
period.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite a human, quite nice. The Invisible Man deserves a shout out, I think, because that was a really solid horror film with what's her name from Mad Men and the one with that TV show that everyone.
If you want to know someone's name, you
Sorry.
research it before you
Sorry,
turn it
I've forgotten.
on. I think
Anyway.
her name's Elizabeth, but I'm not sure.
Elizabeth Moss.
Yes, there you go.
Elizabeth Moss is very good in
She's
this.
brilliant.
This is a great, again from the Blumhouse, who are just like absolutely knock it out of the park when it comes to horror movies.
And we were so pleased because this was like at the beginning of the pandemic when everything was cancelled, and then they released it like you could pay £20 to watch it, and we were so happy. We're like,
Yeah.
we'll pay anything for a new movie.
Really, we did pay for this, and actually I think for the most part it was worth it. I think this is a really good
It was
twist
great, yeah.
on a very familiar trope with a sort of
It was very good.
interesting domestic abuse angle thrown in. His House is another horror movie which was released on Netflix. You didn't watch this, but definitely worth a mention. Horror for me, like sci-fi, is best when it's trying to express something, or there's something thematic underneath, and when the threat that's being posed, the supernatural threat, is actually representative of something that the characters are going through. So, the Babadook represents grief, for instance. So this, I think, was firing on all cylinders when it came to creating a compelling horror threat that relates to what the characters are experiencing. And the setting of this movie is 2 refugees fleeing from war-torn Sudan and coming to England and being housed. And that in itself was a very interesting journey to take. You take out all the horror stuff, and this actually really works as a character drama.
I wanted to watch that movie, but then because I watched like the opening minute or two, and then I realised it was a horror movie, and I was like, no thanks. I don't need to watch a horror movie tormenting these people.
These 2 actors are excellent, and I really cared about them and the characters and their journey. And if I'm honest, the drama is better than the horror. The horror is just pretty good horror, but this works better as a character drama than a horror movie. But kind of interesting that they're meshed together. But it's very good. I really do recommend it. Soul, we've said enough on that, and we just did an episode on it. But it is definitely worthy of an honourable mention.
Well, if Extraction's worthy of an honourable mention, I'm pretty sure Soul's worthy of an honourable mention.
And another, yeah, fair enough. Soul is better than Extraction for sure. Another movie which we watched very recently was a Christmas movie called Happiest Season, which is definitely worthy of an honourable mention. What?
I'm just laughing at the dregs of your list now.
It was a good movie. We both enjoyed it.
It is a good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly fine made-for-TV Christmas movie.
I'm sorry, define honourable mention then. It's like movies that we watched this year that were good and that we'd recommend. And then lastly, Enola Holmes was a movie that came out on Netflix. Not perfect.
Very enjoyable.
But very enjoyable, and kind of had enough flair and charm and energy on the screen to sort of propel it along for 2 hours. And
we did a review on that one as well. Most of the movies Dave's mentioning we did do reviews on this year.
Yes, and Millie Bobby Brown was very... she just proved that she is a leading lady and can like hold the screen. And she proves that I think the last season of Stranger Things really wasted her. She deserves way more than she's getting in that show. And she lit up the screen in Enola Holmes. Yeah. It's brilliant. And I think they're probably going to make 40 of those movies. I would if I was them, for sure. And I'd definitely show up for more of it. Did you say she's Sherlock Holmes' sister and she solves mysteries? Yeah. Brilliant. And Henry Cavill. Yeah, Henry Cavill. We have the biggest crush on Henry Cavill. Always delightful. We're obsessed with Henry Cavill. So that's it. Quite a few there. Yeah. So let's take another break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from what you guys thought were your best and worst of this year. But first, you're going to hear from some of our family members who we managed to convince to send us recordings of their best and worst movies of the year. And we even got Oscar, our 3-year-old, on board, and we're so pleased he made this episode, and we think he's quite a little film critic.
So we're here with Oscar, and we thought we'd ask Oscar what his favourite movie ever is. What's your favourite movie, Oscar?
Frozen.
Frozen. Oh, and what do you like about Frozen?
A song.
The songs. The songs are good, aren't they? What's your favourite song in Frozen?
About Kristoff sings.
Kristoff sings?
Yeah.
And what does he sing?
I don't know.
He sings, what does he do? He lives Lost in the Woods, doesn't he? Do you like that one?
Yeah.
How does that one go?
I don't know.
Does he sing, reindeers are better than people?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. And who's the best person in Frozen? Who's your favourite?
Olaf.
Olaf, he's good.
I love Snowman.
Yeah. What does Olaf sing? He sings a song as well, doesn't he?
How does it go?
Sings about summer, doesn't he? Yeah.
And what?
Summer.
Who's the queen?
Elsa.
And what does Elsa do?
Hurt Anna.
She hurts
Anna?
Oh,
I don't remember that.
Why does she do that?
Oh, wait, she does, yeah.
Why did she hurt Anna?
In her castle.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it's a mistake, isn't it? It was an accident.
And then who chases them?
Hans.
Hans?
Yeah.
Is Hans a bad guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Spoiler.
But bad guys are... Hans is only pretend.
He's only pretend?
Yeah, they're only pretend, yeah.
And what else do you like about Frozen? What's your favourite song?
Let it go.
Can you sing Let It Go?
I don't know how it goes.
Do you know?
I don't want to sing it.
Do you want to sing it
Okay.
together?
No.
Okay. No, we don't.
Okay, Oscar, so that's your favourite movie of 2020? And what's your favourite TV show?
PJ Masks.
PJ Masks.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you like that?
Because it's got my favourite colours. The green and blue and red are my favourite colours.
Oh, nice. And who's your favourite in PJ Masks?
Romeo.
Romeo.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy, isn't he?
Oh.
Yeah?
Okay, Oscar. Well, thank you. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye, Cinemile.
Bye-bye, T-Mile.
Oh, thank you, Oscar.
Hello, Happy New Year, everyone. Elizabeth here, also known as Lockdown Lizzie. So due to spending most of this year in lockdown, my best and worst films for the year come from some streaming services. Worst for me has to be Christmas on the Square with Dolly Parton and Christine Baranski. Thought I would love it, love musicals, love Christmas, love Dolly Parton, but the songs didn't do it for me. It's a bit overly religious, a bit cheap looking. Christine Baranski was amazing, but overall not something I'll rewatch. Best for me is on Disney Plus, Hamilton. So a 2020 release of the New York production of this musical, which I saw in person in London, so a different cast. And I really, really enjoyed watching it on the small screen. You actually get to see people up close, which you don't really get to see when you're in the theatre, and also really nice at the moment when we can't actually go and see things in real life. So I really enjoyed that. Bye, everyone.
Hi guys, it's John and Danielle, and we are Dave's favourite brother-in-law and his favourite and only sister. I am talking for the both of us and giving you a review of our best and worst films of 2020. So, firstly, we thought the best film of 2020 was 1917. We both felt it was very well made. You were immediately immersed in the film. It was emotional throughout, the suspense at each scene. You didn't know what was going to happen next. And at the end of it, we both looked at each other and both said that was unbelievable. So that's definitely our best film. Our worst film is The Christmas Chronicles 2. Firstly, the plot line was absolutely bonkers. I think the game of chicken between the two sleighs was just absolutely ridiculous. And I really thought that this was a very lazy made film. And my pregnant wife fell asleep halfway through, so that can only presume that it was horrific. So that's our best and worst. So Happy New Year and thanks very much for everything. Take care.
Jimmy here, Kathy's dad.
The film of the year for me was Knives Out. A good humoured murder mystery and with a very welcome Latina lead played with great empathy. And always a pleasure to see Jamie Lee Curtis and indeed Daniel Craig doing a bit of acting. On the other hand, my least favourite was Joker. Such a bleak dystopian film and subject. No little bit of light relief in it at all. So why present such misery? That's not a way to take away from the technical aspects of the film and of the acting. But why? So after struggling to put words in this, I came across a review by another gentleman, David Eric of IndieWire. And his words, incendiary, confused, potentially toxic. I'd agree. Bye, everybody.
Hello, Cinemile. Linda here, Kathy's mom. And the actual only cinema experience I had this year was seeing Tenet. So, you think I might rate it as the best, but I'm actually rating it as my most disappointing. It really failed for me to deliver anything other than superficial spectacular, and it left no lasting impression, unlike his other movie, Inception, which is one of my all-time favourites for the depth of it and the way it explores levels of mind and implications of deep guilt. So a complete contrast, and I'd say it's what they used to call all fur coat and no knickers. So I think what that actually indicates for me is that the movies I like to watch now are the ones that make a kind of an emotional impression and stay with me in terms of theme and performance. So for that, I'm going to give my best of the year to a movie called Ammonite, which stars Saoirse Ronan and Kate Winslet, and well, they're both magnificent. And it's a beautiful movie that touches on love and friendship and well worth a watch. So that's it. Have a happy new year. Bye.
Right, we are back. We are kid-free. It's been about 6 hours since you last heard from us, which in parenting years is 8 years.
I would say 6 million years. If I was being generous.
So much has happened. I think we've aged. So now we are back in our house and
back
we
in
are
our sofa where we don't belong.
ready to and also sorry, thank you to all our family who you just heard from.
Thank you so much, family,
for contributing.
We love you guys, and you keen regular listeners will probably wonder, where are all the guests you usually get at the end of the year when you ask, Ghost of Podcast Past to come on? The answer is we weren't organised enough. So we couldn't exactly email other podcasters today and say, quickly, will you send us voice notes that we can throw in the episode? We can do that to our families.
It's already January when we're recording this. So we're all right. I'm amazed we even got it out.
So don't think we've fallen out with all our lovely podcast friends. We haven't. No. We're just not organised.
Sorry, guys.
We're here to talk about.
Now we're going to do the movie we each thought was the worst we saw this year.
I've got 2 movies.
Then we're going to hear from 2. Okay, cheater.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hear from you guys on Twitter. And then we're going to do the best movie we saw this year that wasn't a new release.
Yeah, our favourite retro watches of the year that it was.
Right, Kathy. Give me one one of your 2 worst movies from this year.
I'll give you one that I suspect may be your worst of the year also.
Okay, go on.
It is a movie that I watched on Disney Plus.
Yeah, obviously it's this.
It took me and my husband. Yeah, it took us approximately 4 weeks to watch Artemis Fowl. That's the longest we have ever spent watching a movie for this podcast. Where to begin with Artemis Fowl? Kenneth Branagh directed, if you can believe this, based on a...
How did he produce this?
Based on a beloved series of books, right? The amount of enraged cinema listeners we had who messaged us after our episode to say that they are huge fans of the books and were basically crying at this film of how bad it was. We've recorded a whole episode on it, so let's not lay into it too much.
Which was my personal favourite episode to record this year.
Artemis
I know you said the Eurovision one. I think we did them back to back.
I think we did, yeah. So it was a good day.
I'd recommend go listen to the Artemis Fowl episode. No, don't watch the movie.
No, God no.
Do not do that to yourself. But go listen to our episode on that.
Frankly,
we had a lot of fun.
You won't be able to watch the movie. Try your best.
It's
the
unwatchable.
only reason that we finished it was because we were like, "There's no movies out, and we really want to record an episode."
We
of the
needed
podcast.
to produce an episode of our podcast, and this was what we chose.
Imagine a movie where Judi Dench plays the Queen of the Leprechauns and utters such lines as "Top of the morning to ya." Imagine such a thing as in reshoots, because the movie made no sense, they literally helicoptered Colin Farrell in and shot some random disjointed scenes with him to try and add some coherency.
Wait, was he not in it?
No. Did you not read one of our reader emails? She told us it was all reshoots with Colin Farrell. He was brought in last minute.
But who was the dad then before that?
The dad wasn't in it, apparently.
Oh, wow. Oh my god.
The kid actors.
This whole movie feels like reshoots.
It's based on a fantasy series of books set in Ireland about leprechauns and pixies. We thought, oh, that sounds great.
This should have been right up our alley.
It should have been. It's basically a wannabe Harry Potter. It ain't no Harry Potter.
We love Harry Potter. We love Irish mythology.
We thought we liked Kenneth Branagh.
This is a disaster. Do you know the way? You know the way when you're watching let's pick a movie from our top 5, say Parasite, right? And you're watching a movie like that. Oh no, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is my new favourite movie of all time, I've decided.
Your new favourite movie of all time?
I watched it again a few months ago, and watching that, I'm like...
Dave, it was your favourite movie 2 years ago when you watched it first.
Yeah, and it's my favourite movie of all time now. What's the problem? And you're watching something like that, and personally, I'm just like, every single element that makes a movie was just like perfect here, and a lot of that is like planning and finesse, but a lot of it is just luck and timing and lightning in a bottle, and it just
Or coherent storytelling.
Yes, and my point is, like, the perfect movies are so rare and hard to find, and they're not just a director, or they're not just a performance, they're everything. A movie is all of it's the music, it's the acting, it's the script, it's everything coming together to produce this perfect thing. This is like the opposite of that. It's the exact opposite. Like, everyone came together and nothing worked. Nothing, not a single thing in this movie worked.
Do you know what? It's actually a perfect allegory for 2020. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
Everything was wrong.
And it just keeps getting worse. That's another way in which it's 2020.
You're like, this movie will have to get better as it wraps up. Imagine at one point that
worse.
Josh Gad, who's, you'll know, is the voice of Olaf the Snowman in Frozen.
Who's miscast? Everyone's miscast
is a
in this
dwarf.
movie.
And at one point, did I fever dream this, or does Josh Gad pull treasure out of his ass?
No, you have it slightly wrong.
Oh.
Josh Gad. This is minor spoilers for Artemis Fowl if you give a shit. But Josh Gad, who plays a dwarf in this movie, at one stage opens his mouth into a maw. And then
what's a maw?
Builds like a giant gaping void. Like a horrifying image that will seared into my retina. Like straight out of David
it was
Cronenberg.
awful. That's what I'm remembering now.
That happened. And then builds a tunnel into the house by like eating the ground like a mole or something, right? But like eats the dirt, but then shits out the dirt.
Right, that's what I was
as he's doing it. That's what you're remembering. So if you can imagine just like a dwarf Josh Gad, like with mud coming out of his arse.
Also, Josh Gad narrates the whole film from prison, and again, that was
for no reason.
That was added in afterwards.
That was a framing device that makes no sense.
But that was added in after because the film made so little sense that they were like, "This will
also,
actually."
the film's like 74 minutes long or something.
But they
it's like
needed
there's
that.
no film here. There's nothing. yet it somehow feels like 100 years if you watch it.
Yet it took us 4 weeks to watch it, and every day Dave would be like, "Kathy, we have to finish
Let's watch
Artemis
5
Fowl."
more minutes of Artemis Fowl.
I'll be like, I will watch 5 minutes. We're literally timing it, and then we have to turn it off again. And the worst part is, there's some kid actors in here that I'm sure are good, and this movie did them dirty. And Kenneth Branagh, it's actually lousy what you did to these kids because this is their career and their livelihood, and this is
I know.
their.
And they'd have been
not
so
fair.
excited
It's
as
not
well.
fair.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny because
And look, they did their absolute
They
best.
did. When we saw Tenet and Kenneth Branagh was in it, I was like, how dare you?
How dare you, Ken?
I don't care. Kenneth Branagh was a actually really good actor in Tenet. Like, everything about him was great. But all I was thinking was, you made Artemis Fowl and you have the gall. Show your face
this year on a cinema screen. How dare you?
encapsulate everything that 2020 is. It all went wrong, and then it was just fucked onto a streaming service because no one cared about it.
Yeah.
But I have a close second,
Okay, go on.
and this is a film we actually saw in the cinema.
Oh, go on.
Back in the glory days of January, when we only had one child, and I was about to give birth to the second, and we said, let's have a family day out, and we went to see Paw Patrol Ready, Race, Rescue.
Was that this year?
That was this year.
Oh,
that was
wow,
the day
okay.
before Elliot was born.
Yeah.
My little sister, aka Lockdown Lizzie, also came with us, though that wasn't when she lived with us. That was just, when we used to casually meet people and do stuff with them.
And we did an episode on that.
We
if
did.
you scroll back
And
a bit.
okay, first of all, when we were talking about what's the Pixar movie that you like?
Onward?
Onward. And I was like, it has such a special place for us because it was like the first time we brought both boys to the cinema. Paw Patrol Ready, Race, Rescue has a special place in my heart in that it was like the first movie Oscar, like, as an old enough kid to understand when to see in the cinema, and it was 45 minutes long, which was a great duration for him, and he was really happy. But all of that aside, this cannot be called a movie. I say
a long 45
it's 45 minutes, right? For anyone who's seen Paw Patrol, you know what Paw Patrol is, right? Imagine an episode, the thin plot of an episode of that drawn out by 45 minutes, and almost all the movie is just cars, like, which are just ads for toys, just racing around the screen. If you haven't seen Paw Patrol, it's an extremely popular kids cartoon that we hate, and it's basically about 5 dogs who are controlled by this weird child.
6 dogs.
6 dogs, that are controlled by this weird child, and they go
Marshall,
and like
Rocky, Chase, Rubble, Chase, Sky, we're on the way.
And they like go and rescue people, right? And it makes no sense, and why this child controls them is beyond me. The whole thing is an ad for toys. We speak as people who have Paw Patrol toys in their house, and whose son plays with him every day.
Oh, it's Oscar's obsessed with it, like, and as are so many. It's the thing is a phenomenon. It's clearly they've hit all the right.
It's unbelievable how bad. Like they should never have called it a movie. It's unbelievable that was called a film. And actually,
it had a character arc. Let's not forget Marshall, who is nominally the fire engine dog, is like obsessed with becoming a racer, but he,
spoilers for Marshall
is quite nervous. And then, spoilers. He eventually
he becomes a racer.
And saves the day
whilst rescuing people.
Yeah.
And like it's so funny, like the power of Paw Patrol. Like the other day, we were in the car and Oscar was crying, and we put on the Paw Patrol theme song on Spotify, and we rocked out in the car.
Yeah,
we were literally like, Paw Patrol, we'll be there on the.
The worst thing about is that theme song is so annoying and catchy, and it will be in your head forever.
But I have Paw Patrol as my joint worst movie because it's just not a movie, and I can't believe they called it a movie, and I can't believe we all paid to go and sit in the cinema and watch it. But Artemis Fowl is the thing that was most foul this year. It has so much talent behind it. It had so much money. It's based on a pre-existing property, and it's inexcusable. And I would actually be thrilled if anyone could email us or tweet us or whatever and actually tell us they liked it, because I would be like, "Are you okay?
Is everything okay?" I think you're actually doing Paw Patrol Ready Race Rescue a disservice by mentioning it in the same breath as Artemis Fowl, because Paw Patrol Ready Race Rescue did exactly what it set out to do. It was a short,
just to sell toys to
movie, longer version of the TV show.
It took us longer to walk home from the movie than it took us to watch the movie.
It was on brand, yeah. You're right.
And I believe,
whereas Artemis Fowl, like you said, should have lived up to the apparent potential of its source material, and just didn't.
One of our listener theories was that, like, apparently Artemis Fowl himself, the young boy, is like a bit of a villain in the books, and apparently Disney lost their nerve.
Apparently he's not a bit of a villain in the book. That is the premise of the book.
Well,
he's the world's greatest mastermind.
But I'm saying that apparently the film Disney shied away and didn't want him being a villain in the end. Apparently, this is all hearsay. So therefore, that's why they cut out all the scenes where the boy was bad. So all we saw was the boy just moaning around doing nothing. And again, that's lousy on the kid, because he probably did brilliantly in those villainous scenes. Like, because playing a villain is really fun, and just walking around being a child who's a Basil exposition is no fun.
Yeah.
Right. We are going to listen. Dave's going to read out what some of our lovely Twitter followers had to say.
Yeah, so we asked you guys on Twitter what your best and worst of the year
and I'm sorry we can't read them all out now because there's so many, but we have a thread on our Twitter if you want to go and look at them.
Yeah, so we just picked out some of our favourites. AJ Black said his worst was Artemis Fowl. And Project Power, which was that Netflix movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Jamie Foxx, where you could take a pill and get a superpower. We didn't watch it.
Never heard of it.
And he said the best were Tenet, The Invisible Man, and Possessor, which I really want to see and could have made my list, which is by David Cronenberg's son.
Cool.
And it's about like a face-changing assassin.
Sounds awesome. Okay, why didn't we watch that?
Jack Navin.
It's Jack Navin.
Sorry, Jack, I do this every year.
Jack is one of our patrons, but instead of sending us a voice note, as you'll hear from our patrons at the end, he sent us a tweet. Jack, explain yourself.
Shade. First we get your name wrong, Jack, again, and then she's.
I never get his name wrong.
Right, so Jack said, obvious choices for me, but best film, Parasite, slightly edging out Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and I still love and will defend Tenet too. As for worst film, I don't particularly like picking a worst, so I won't. Also, I didn't see many bad films this year anyway.
A lot of people saying that because, like, we and Dave and I were discussing it, when you often go to the cinema and can see a bad movie, you'll sit through it. First of all, there was a lot less movies out this year, and secondly, when you're at home watching a bad movie, you just turn it off. Unlike Artemis Fowl, and you're trying to do a podcast and you're desperate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you kind of, I don't think it sticks with you as much as like the assault on your senses of being in the cinema watching a bad movie.
Oh, there's nothing worse because you bloody paid for it as well,
exactly.
and you often, like, it's hard to walk out of a movie. The last one we did was Baywatch, right? But like most of the time, if you've paid for it, you'll stick it out. Shade Podcast, Lou said her best was Rocks, no doubt because she watched it with us.
And yeah, again, we did a whole review with Lou from Shade Podcast, which you can check out. But I'm really pleased she watched her best movie of the year with us, albeit remotely.
Yes. Daniel Crowley said the best was
Also Parasite. He said, so happy I got to see it at the start of the year in the cinema. Soul is a close second. Pixar just casually giving me an existential crisis at age 27.
Yeah, it does that.
He said the worst was Lost Girls. I have zero recollection what happened in this movie, and I think that says it all, really. I haven't heard of Lost Girls.
No, but I'm enjoying the casual shade.
sounds like a real memorable one. At Skent Taylor said, I revisited a lot of older movies with my kids, brackets teens, which was very rewarding. Yeah, it's something I'm personally looking forward to when our kids grow out of Paw Patrol. But he said, but as for 2020 movies, the best that he saw were Host, Parasite, 1917, and Palm Springs. Host is an interesting one. That's that Shudder film, which is set in the pandemic and a lockdown.
Is Palm Springs the one we watched about all those swingers in California? I don't think so.
I don't think it is. But thanks for ousting us for watching a swingers.
I can't remember when
what
we
was
watched
that? That was a terrible movie. Whatever
I
that
can't
was.
remember what it was.
And he said the most disappointing was one we haven't seen yet, Wonder Woman 1984. I'm hearing a lot of people get disappointed by that.
But is it also because they waited a year to see it? Like, do you know what I mean?
Maybe,
the pressure on these movies is too much.
Plus,
now.
Wonder Woman was quite good and revered. I think it probably has a lot to live up to.
Yeah, for sure.
At Picture a Name said
Ben, one of our patrons again.
Ben, hello Ben.
Voice note Ben.
And actually go check out his website. He makes beautiful handmade children's names through like illustration, so it spells out their names in like animals or something.
We've got
some movie ones for our kids.
Yeah.
And he does amazing work. Picture a Name. And he said the best were Parasite and Wolfwalkers. Oh man, I really want to see Wolfwalkers. That's the Irish animation, I think.
Oh yes, I do want to see that.
From the Secret of Kells guys.
I nearly think we nearly need to get an Apple TV thing at this stage.
Yeah, because we want to watch Ted Lasso as well. He said he managed to see that in the cinema the day before Scotland locked down for winter, but he didn't see enough movies this year to have a worst. I mean, this is not a bad thing that none of us saw bad movies this year. Catherine B said the best were Saint Maud, and if streaming allowed, then Borat.
Streaming allowed, Catherine. If there was no streaming, we got no list.
Streaming is 100% allowed. She said Borat and The Devil All the Time and The Vast of Night.
We never saw Borat, actually. We kind of missed it and then just got over it.
No, we were going to do an episode on it and then
but it's it's a funny thing. If you miss Borat, even 2 weeks later, you're not going to watch it. Like,
but you know what also happened is that the Joe Biden won the election, and then it suddenly felt like a bit old news.
Yeah. Also, we forgot to mention that was one of our highlights of 2020, of course.
Trump not winning for me, rather than
no, we just
Joe
yet
Biden
to see if he
elected.
doesn't believe.
Worst, she said, she says, I know Tenet is exceptionally well made with very charismatic actors, but it made me feel thick and I'd have to watch it again to understand it.
Yeah, fair enough. And it also leaves you feel very cold, doesn't it, Tenet? Like,
yeah, he gets accused of being quite cold. One brilliant tweet. I have to give a shout out to Chris Hewitt, king of Twitter, and who usually contributes.
He's usually on this episode,
end of years.
and as we say, we forgot to ask him.
But Chris had a brilliant tweet, which was a lot of people accuse Christopher Nolan of producing cold films. But I'll never forget the single tear that rolled up my cheek as I watched Tenet.
That's very good.
And Catherine B also said, sorry I forgot one, Host, another for Host. She said a great year for horror. I'll agree with you there, Catherine. And she said, brackets, sorry Cathy, I know you don't like horror.
That's really nice of you, Catherine, to be so considerate.
Sophie Cookson said the best was definitely Saint Maud. Oh, I really want to see Saint Maud.
No, I'm over it now. You know when too many people have recommended something, it's like Parasite, and then you just think, I won't like it, and then you will.
No, I think, it sounds like I should see that. What's wrong with you? Do you not know who recommendations work? Too many people have said that's good, so I can't watch it. She said best for St. Maud, which was also one of the 3 cinema visits I managed. Yeah, about the same for us, I think. The final scene still haunts me months on. Ooh, that sounds interesting. She said the worst is hard this year, as I don't think we have had anything truly terrible. Well, she doesn't have a Disney Plus subscription. Jack Croxall, hi Jack. Says Happy New Year. My best Host. I know, a lot of love for Host, and you know that's only like 60 something minutes long.
Wow,
I think we got to sign up to Shudder.
I like the sound of that duration.
So much fun, so scary, and incredible how fast Shudder got it out.
And Jack's a filmmaker.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched one of his shorts this year, which we tweeted about.
Yeah.
And he said, my worst was The Hunt. Not terrible, but the satire, humour, and horror was nothing like as good as I was hoping. Bit of a missed opportunity. That was that one about liberal people hunting conservatives, or the other way around, literally.
Great.
I can't
great
remember what it was. Mike Duggan,
Hi, Duggan.
our old friend from Ireland. Hi, Mike.
Another patron. The patrons were supposed to be sending us voice notes. Look at them.
Well, we do have voice notes from the patrons at the end.
We do. At the end, you'll hear voice notes from the other patrons.
Mike said, or Duggan, as we know him, said he really enjoyed 1917 and Greyhound was good. I don't know what Greyhound is. Let's look that up. He said the worst by far was Tenet. Shocking stuff.
Tenet's a 50-50.
Yeah,
though.
I love
It's a
how many
Marmite.
people either had it as their best or worst.
But it's funny because I had it in my top 5, but I didn't even really like it that much. It's such a weird movie.
Yeah.
It's so many really good things and so many awful things combined.
Yeah, I think I want to give it another watch to kind of reassess it. Mike Reed said, I felt quite let down by Tenet. Wasn't awful, but certainly not up to the caliber I expect from Nolan.
Well, much like Mom was.
Charlie at Whedon Charlotte said the worst is certainly a toss-up between Tenet and The New Mutants, which I completely forgot actually got released.
I wish
this year.
we'd seen The New Mutants purely for
I
this.
don't. Sounds like
No,
it's a load of shite.
it can't be as bad as Artemis Fowl.
No, nothing can. We should actually make it the benchmark every year from here on out. Was it worse than Artemis Fowl?
On a scale of bad to foul, F-O-W-L.
And Charlie said the best, I think it counts as a 2020 release, was Parasite. It captivated
in
me
England.
from start to finish. Yeah, well, we're clearly counting it. Umar Motani said the best, Promising Young Women, Wolf of Snow Hollow, Cajillionaire, The Kid Detective, Save Yourselves, Unpregnant, and Spontaneous.
Oh my god, Umar, you've seen so many more movies than we have.
Yeah, and Umar, you are clearly more of a cinephile than I am, because I haven't even heard of any of them. So
Cajillionaire, I've seen a trailer for
I've
that.
heard of Cajillionaire. So these sound like really movies. I'm going to save this tweet and catch up on some of these. He said, but I have heard of your guilty pleasures. He said guilty pleasure, or he or she, sorry, said guilty pleasures. We Can Be Heroes, which just came out on Netflix. That's a Shark Boy and Lava Girl sequel. And Hubie Halloween.
Oh my god.
That's the Adam Sandler thing.
We were like, we're going to do Hubie Halloween again, desperation for the podcast. And we watched the trailer and we're like, we just can't.
Just can't do it.
2020 is hard enough. We can't watch Hubie Halloween on
So
top of it.
Umar, amazing to have such a highbrow list and Hubie Halloween in the same tweet. Very impressive. And then MS at Def Nut said best films 2020. Tenet, truly innovative time-bending cinema with plot holes, but wow. And Wonder Woman 1984. Gal still kicking misogynist butt with Chris B committing 84 fashion crimes. And that's all I saw in this weird anti-cinema year. Well, great that you actually got to a cinema.
An emoji of someone with a mask over their face.
So, thank you, all of you, and to everyone else who wrote in that we didn't have time for. Thank you. Sounds like Tenet is completely divisive, and Host is a must watch.
Yeah.
If you like horror.
And now we wanted to talk about something we don't normally do at all, this end of year roundup. But like most of you, we all watched a lot of movies at home, and like old movies, partially for comfort, partially because there wasn't a lot out. In our case, we were watching a lot of old movies for our Patreon, where we do a retro film every month, and we've so much fun because the topic or the theme is suggested by our patrons. So for example, someone will say like a movie that spans decades as a suggestion, and we'll pick
Which was our latest one.
Was our latest one. And then all the patrons will suggest what movie should go in there. And then that most recent one, for example, movies that span decades, Interview with the Vampire was the winner, and we watched that, which was like such a fun movie to watch last month. So it kind of helps us, because you know that dilemma where every month you're like, what? Like every Saturday night or wherever you're at home trying to pick a movie, you're like, what will we watch? And you could just infinitely surf.
We have outsourced.
So we've outsourced all that work, and then we've
choices.
such a laugh watching them, and then we do like fun facts every month, and we just love it. It's like, I really would say this is not a plug to make people subscribe. Our Patreon has like been one of the happiest things this year for me. Such a nice bunch of people. We feel like we know everyone from all the comments and the submissions, and we have such a laugh recording them. And then like every month with when my little sister Elizabeth lived with us, Lockdown Lizzie, it was really joyous because the old movies we watched, usually we've seen them, but she hadn't. She's a lot younger than us. And to that end, my absolute favourite retro watch of the year had to be Face Off.
Yeah.
What a
We
laugh.
watched Face Off with Lizzie, who'd never seen it before and didn't know what it was about.
She didn't even know the premise of
And
Face Off,
guys-
and she hates Nicolas Cage.
It was the perfect storm. I cannot recommend enough. Try and watch Face Off with someone who doesn't know what Face Off is about. And watch the realization on their
And
face.
Specifically someone who's doing a PhD in biology, because she then was like obsessive about the science of it all as well.
Yeah.
So much so that we always do, one of us will do fun facts every month, but we made Elizabeth go off and do the fun facts. And she came back with all these incredible scientific facts about it. But honestly, the moment when Elizabeth said, "Oh my God, are they going to swap faces?" And just watching it, like, what a movie. Like, it really holds up.
Oh
Like,
God, it's so much fun.
John Travolta is so fun as a baddie. You don't
Yeah.
often see it. And Nicolas Cage is just at his peak, absolutely bananas Nicolas Cage. And the plot of the movie is
I
ridiculous.
saw it great. I saw another great tweet recently where somebody said, "This Christmas during lockdown, spare a thought for the Archer family from Face Off who can't do their usual greeting." You know, the weird creepy face thing
Like-
where you rub their hand over someone's
Like
face.
when John Travolta's in Nicolas Cage's bodies now. I'm so sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Face Off, like Elizabeth. But when John Travolta, who's like the goodie, goes into Nicolas Cage's body, who's like the baddie, and then but of course John Travolta's wife realizes who it is when Nicolas Cage just like rubs his fingers down her eyelids and down her face. And then the weirdest part is after we watched Face Off, Dave went off and did that to our baby Elliot. Anyway, Elizabeth, we have to give you a special shout out on this episode. We love you to bits. We loved when you lived with us. Thank you for
Yeah.
contributing earlier on in the episode. And honestly, it was a privilege for us to have Elizabeth live with us for almost 4 months this year. What a laugh we had with her. I really miss her,
I
actually.
like that.
And we, you know,
She was a great housemate and a great regular guest on the podcast.
oh, she was amazing. And like, even one of our themes one month was like was just like early 90s movies, because we realised Elizabeth hadn't seen any
Was
early
that a
90s.
League of Their Own?
We watched League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Elizabeth just had no knowledge of early 90s classics. It was amazing. So Elizabeth, we miss you. Thanks for contributing. You are here in spirit with us because you are the third member of the cinema. Anyone who listened to us this year will have 100% heard Elizabeth on the podcast. She also is a patron, so she has to pay every month for the benefit of listening to her own episodes. Dave, what was your top retro watch of the year?
My top one wasn't one of our Patreon watches, even though we did some great ones. But it's actually one we did release on the main feed for our what was it, 200th episode? 200th
Oh yeah,
episode?
our original plans for a 200th episode had been like a massive live show. You know, we
Yeah,
all
we were
these
actually
dreams.
had started to organise it and everything.
All these dreams, and then it was no, fuck it, let's just watch 2 retro movies and walk around the block and talk about them.
Maybe for
So I picked
maybe number 300 we'll get there.
I picked A League of Their Own and for Dave because
No,
Dave
no,
had never
Thelma
watched
and
it.
Louise.
Sorry, I picked Thelma and Louise because Dave had never watched it, and then he picked Aliens because I'd never watched it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And my choice is Thelma and Louise because that's
Whoa.
a cracking movie.
You're welcome. I introduced you.
Yeah,
to it.
no, I'd never seen it before, and it is just like top notch from start to finish. It's like it's just a really fun road movie. Susan Sarandon and Jenna, Gina Davis are just sizzling.
Oh my
both
god,
of them. They're just
incredible.
on fire.
And we
in this.
watched this back to back with A League of Their Own. We
Yeah,
did, like,
which
Gina Davis
she's
double
also
bill.
really great
Yeah.
in. I don't love A League of Their Own as much as you do, but it's a lot of fun. But the Thelma and Louise is just incredibly well written.
Something special, yeah.
It is something special.
You see why it's such a classic.
It's a really powerful feminist piece of work.
Yeah, it's really
it feels
powerful.
kind of out of time and also very forward thinking in a way. And it's quite bittersweet and tragic, and it's got that sort of Bonnie and Clyde outlaw vibe to it. It's kind of anti-establishment. It's and it's just like looks awesome as well. Like Ridley Scott, when he gets a good script, is
It's like Americana
awesome.
on screen.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the fashion, like everything about, oh my god, a young Brad Pitt, like, come on, are you joking me that
Yeah.
he used to look like that?
He's super sexy.
Yeah, it's incredible. Brad
So,
Pitt
yeah.
and Gina Davis's sex scene is like, it's up there.
Yeah, it's
incredible.
quite something.
And
So-
apparently, this was one of the fun facts we had, but I'll give it to you now. You don't have to go and listen to the episode. Apparently, Gina Davis insisted that she filmed the sex scene with Brad Pitt,
Yeah, of
which,
course.
like, who can blame you, honestly? But what a year it's been, Dave. I genuinely enjoyed being locked in with you this year.
Oh, thanks. Me too.
I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone except you, and of course Elizabeth. It's been a tough year. Obviously, Dave mentioned he lost his dad this year. We also had, the birth of our son Elliot this year, which was incredible. We've been very lucky to live in our nice house and have our lovely kids and all be together. Albeit, of course, we now know too much about each other more than anyone ever needs to know. Like when your partner's going to the toilet, what your partner's had for breakfast, what your partner's had for lunch, what your partner's had for dinner. There's just a lot of incidental information rolling around in my head.
I can't
about
believe you're
you.
finishing the year and our podcast on talking about me going to the toilet. That's where this is going.
It's not going anywhere. But thank you everyone for listening to us and sticking with us this year when we clearly have had very little to talk about.
Yeah, we really do appreciate everybody continuing to listen
And
to
it was-
whatever dreck we managed.
It kept
to
us
watch.
sane. Like it really kept us sane.
did, yeah.
Like particularly in that really the heady days of March, April, May when you were weren't even really allowed out of your house and just to exercise and our release and for our mental health and for a time as a couple was to leave the kids with Elizabeth and us just walk around the block and talk about movies and it
just brought a
saved my
sense
life.
of it brought a sense of normalcy back for us.
And a lot of people were messaging us saying thank you so much for doing the podcast because it makes me feel normal listening to you guys talk shit walking around the block about something.
Yeah, and look, if that's that's literally the least we could do for everybody, and,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that it was able to help. And I personally have found similar comfort from podcast and YouTube shows that I like. So. Look, we're gonna, we're sticking with this, despite the fact that cinemas aren't gonna open anytime soon. We're gonna, we love doing this. We love chatting to you guys on Twitter at the cinema.
And you know what? If you like us, all we ask is that you head over to wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe and rate us. We would absolutely be thrilled especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts, because that's just the currency of podcasting. If you could leave us a review and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. But on to, as we said, our special bunch of patrons. Here are audio clips from some of them on their best and worst movies of the year. And thank you guys for supporting us this year. And as we said, we had so much fun on Patreon this year. We also donate about 50% of the money we get from Patreon to various charities. Every month we make donations, and in December we donated all of our money to Action for Children. We also donated all of our money in August to cancer charities in honour of Dave's dad, and we also donated all of our money another month to other charities. I've forgotten what they were now, but we're always donating to all the charities.
It's all written in there.
It's all written in there.
And if you'd like to join that lovely bunch of people, and they really are a top bunch, you go to, I'm struggling.
Patreon.
You go to patreon.com /
The
Cinemile. It's called the Cinemile High Club. And you can join up there for $2 or $3 a month.
Yeah, retro movie reviews and tons
and lots of TV reviews.
Of TV.
And just a quick reminder as well, our TV episode is live if you want to go
Yeah.
listen to our best TV. And let's face it, the TV was better.
TV was a lot better this
than the
year.
movies
That's
this
live
year.
on the feed right now. And here are our patrons. Patrons? Here are our patrons.
Here are our patrons on Patreon. All right. Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye.
And look, hope you're all well. Stay safe. And we'll see you, as always, every week on the Cinemile.
This is Brony here from Patreon and from real life. My favourite movie of 2020 was Uncut Gems, which I just thought was a really unique and excellent movie with Adam Sandler. Just really funny and dark and original and really entertaining. My worst movie of 2020, I'm going to say, is Love, Wedding, Repeat. Just because I'm a big rom-com fan and I have such a low bar, and yet this was really just a baffling storyline with wasted performances from a lot of good actors. So that's it. Thanks a million for all the episodes in 2020 and for keeping us laughing, and can't wait for more in 2021.
Hello. It's Neil.
And Kate.
From the
States. We are here with our best and worst movies of 2020. My best movie is The Lodge. It has everything I want. It has a creepy cult, creepy kids, unreliable narrator, isolation horror. Everything is awesome about it. And my second favorite movie is Color Out of Space. It's just a very unique and fun to watch movie. Neil, what's your best movie?
I don't really have a best of 2020. The only good things I saw were movies from 2019 from people's best of lists from last year. But my worst of 2020 is Gretel and Hansel.
Yeah, mine too.
I mean, it had good cinematography, but that's about it.
Yeah, I was really excited for it. Like, dark fairy tale is my complete aesthetic, and it let me down big time. There was no plot, and it was just terrible. It was terrible.
It just kind of fell flat, I think. So.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. We love you.
Hello, Kathy and Dave, and fellow Cinemilers. It is emergency planning and part-time Gerard Butler consultant Nick. Favourite movie of 2020 for me was, there was hardly a smorgasbord to choose from, but I did genuinely love Invisible Man. I thought it was disturbing. I was disturbed watching it. I was disturbed after it. I will watch it again to disturb myself, no doubt. Really recommend it. I thought it was brilliant. Worst movie, I can't think of any, which means that they just got switched off and forgotten about, frankly, or they weren't released. But biggest disappointment of 2020, I have to say, is Mulan. I was really looking forward to a bit of an epic, but then I just got really turned off by the politics and controversies, and it all got a bit Disney and a bit... so... didn't watch it, don't plan to watch it, which is a shame because, I'm just going to have to wait for Gerard Butler's next instalment for a decent movie to come along. I look forward to it, as I'm sure you all do.
Hi, Kathy and Dave, and all the film fans out there in the Cinemile movieverse. This is Ronan here, long-time listener, first-time caller. My favourite movie of 2020 was The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss, who's very good at looking very scared and nervous. And it made me scared and nervous, and I really enjoyed the movie. My most hated movie of 2020 was the Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga and Will Ferrell's continuously repetitive jokes over the last decade. I'm very tired of seeing his face, and I never want to see it again. Love the show, and hope to catch more episodes in 2021.
Hello, Dave and Kathy. Sam here from the 90 Minutes or Less Film Fest and the Holiday Season podcasts. Thank you for an excellent year of podcasting. You guys have really helped keep me sane. I've been loving the Patreon specials. I've been loving the regular pod. I've been loving watching along from my sofa. My favourite film of the year is probably David Byrne's American Utopia, directed by Spike Lee. Basically the ultimate concert film. I think every song is an absolute banger. Whether you like David Byrne and the Talking Heads or not, I think you'll get along with this film. Beautifully filmed by Spike Lee. And in a year where we have not been able to go to see live music, this is a much-needed tonic. It's available now on streaming and on DVD and Blu-ray. Highly, highly recommend it. Very cinematic. I loved it. A film I did not love is The Prom, directed by Ryan Murphy, available on Netflix, starring Nicole Kidman, Meryl Streep, but James Corden. Ugh, it's a real shame. There is talent in the cast, and I think there is maybe one good song, but as a musical nut, I was really disappointed by this. Didn't like it at all, and I thought James Corden was horribly miscast. Avoid, avoid, avoid.
Hi, Kathy and Dave. This is Laura from Dublin. My best movie has to be Jojo Rabbit from back in January. I hadn't seen much of Taika Waititi's work before, so I loved his whimsical but intelligent approach to World War II. It was really well cast, and there's some great one-liners, and I left feeling like my brain had been tickled in a good way, if that makes sense. My worst movie is Tenet, which I feel bad for saying because it was so nice to see a new movie and be back in the cinema after 5 months of nothing. But while it's nice to be challenged, I found it so hard to follow in certain parts, particularly the battle scene, that it took away from it. If a movie is good, you should get more out of it on a rewatch, but you shouldn't have to rewatch it just to try and piece it together in the first place. Thanks for all the entertaining podcasts this year. Happy New Year.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. But they fought with expert timing. They were funky Chinamen.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, I'm Kim Holderness.
And I'm Ben Holderness.
We host the Holderness Family Podcast every Tuesday.
You may know us from the silly videos that we make online.
Or a book about marriage called Everybody Fights.
Or as winners of season 33 of The Amazing Race.
Still can't believe that happened. Yeah. Listen, we do a lot of stuff, but our podcast is our most favorite thing.
Yeah, because every week we get to sit down face to face, talk to each other about marriage, family, mental health, or just anything that we want to know more about.
Sometimes we have expert interviews, sometimes it's just us, but our goal is to bring some joy and laughter into your life every week.
Our other goal is that maybe you will learn something as well.
Right. So search the Holderness Family Podcast and check out our most recent episodes. We have one about staying organized with creators of the Home Edit.
And one about being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult.
We hope you'll join us.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.